Hi everyone, this is me XCOM, and I'm recording this video in a rushed response regarding the world reset. Um, I'm currently just filming here in my town where I basically had set up since the start of this world, and I'm going to introduce you to the maze that or the project that has probably been announced by now. Hopefully, I will be able to document this video regarding the full inner workings behind the scenes and everything, and show exactly what what was done to build it and what other inner workings and all those details, juicy details regarding the maze. Hopefully, it's going to be a good, interesting movie to watch, but I can't promise it's going to be short. It might be stretched out, boring, and might need a lot of cutting. I'll try to rush through things as fast as possible while keeping all the juicy details and uh, basically give a good description of how the whole thing or how everything was built from start to finish. This is basically a little brick wall inside of my walls, just to make sure that the maze actually had its own brick walls inside of my plot, just to make sure if I did get raided, the maze would actually be a little bit more protected. I guess I could have made it a little bit more protective and put more protective walls or whatnot around it, but I wasn't an aggressive village, so I wasn't expecting a ram or anything showing up at my walls. Here is basically the three crossroads. These three, from this crossroad to this crossroad, basically taking me to inside the maze. There is also another fourth crossroad and a couple other connections that takes me to the world sites that were built later on. Basically was the entry points to the maze. Let's start at the beginning then. This is the first level, and you can see here on the minimap that the maze is located somewhere in the wilderness. It's quite conspicuous. It shows no landmarks, and specifically I was choosing a spot for the maze just to make sure that it was a little bit more difficult to find it by just looking at the minimap. And it's quite deep into the woods, so that random people might come across it, but not at all people will be able to boat by and find it. The other thing that is notable inside of the maze is that the whole construction was done with bricks, and I was trying to avoid using any other materials besides bricks and crossroads and similar materials, expensive materials, if you would call it, just to make sure that it was a little bit more valuable and a lot of heart and soul went into it. The maze is constructed with just simple crossroads like this one, and every single crossroad connection and other crossroads basically have the exact same name. They're all called blood maze, and they're in a short distance from the crossroad you always are trying to go from. It's quite impossible to determine exactly where you will end up when you randomly click on one of these buttons, but if you know exactly that the first button goes to a specific location, you will always go there if you click on that specific button. Basically, number 1 will always take you to, if we click here, to this room over here. Basically, it takes us to the first room. This is one of the entry points of the maze, and it will be it was meant to be accessed from one of the cities, the lost cities, which was a world site that was constructed uniquely to be able to enter the maze. This particular symbol was meant to be symbolizing the lost city's symbol. It is later found in the lost city. There is also runestones here. Only one of them have been carved out. I was being helped by Avolsio actually to do all the short stories and storyline. As I'm really bad at that stuff, he was helping me out. And every runestone have the heart secret of the person that is owning this personal claim. Currently, this personal claim is owned by Blood Maze, and he is the first person of this level. So by killing Blood Maze, you would be able to access Trespass on the claim, and you wouldn't need to leave Trespass Sense. And this sign would be able to, this name and sign would actually be able to be seen before you jumped in here, so you wouldn't leave any sense if you were clever enough to find the heart secret and punch it in. Later on, I would actually wanted to finish these runestones, saying that no hearth fires, no vandalism, and no sign blocking was possible, just to make sure people didn't ruin the maze for other people that wanted to go through the maze. Other things to note was that the maze was constructed just for fun. I didn't do it to gain anything out of it. In fact, I'll spend more energy doing this than doing anything else, and I spent well enough more than I gained out of it, especially because of it prematurely not being able to launch. There is also 2 other locations where the entry points into the maze, where this symbol was the symbol for the harbor, and which is also another world site to enter into the maze. This is not the only one. The last one is down here in the corner, and this is the eye, which could also be entered from the witch's hut, which was the last site. And there was also another hidden site that I will get into later. Their decorations, the world sites, are unique to their own, and each location is different location-wise. There is a picture here of the world. You can see here the maze was located in this location over here. My base was just a short distance away from it. The 3 other locations where you could get inside of the maze was the northern tip, the eastern, and the southern tip. The harbor were located in the middle one. The northern one was the lost city, and the last one was the witch's hut. The last one, the eye, was located a bit closer to the maze, needing only 54 agility, basically half the agility need to get inside of the maze, which was the point of it. And it was located in a different location, and you could only find this location by looking through the library, which I will get into a little bit more in detail later. The most notable construction details that might not be clear was that I removed all the tall trees and left the fir trees specifically just to make sure that the tall trees symbolized the harbor, which could only be found in the northern tip of the first level, which is right up here, where you could find the tall trees. The other details that I went through to make sure that was noted to be noted is that all the loot were made so that the center part of this level had better loot, as it was harder to get to the central location, and the point of getting through to the maze, to the final level, which is basically in this location over here, where the next level would be, then crossroad you would need to actually take to go there would be this particular crossroad, which has a little bit more black decorations around it. And as you try to go closer and closer, you would get a little bit more better loot, but basically the loot on this level would be mediocre at best. And just as a demonstration here, there would be, for example, sand castles inside of this basket, just as a easy loot to get to. The maze would make sure that if you had trespass on, you would actually be able to view the containers, but you wouldn't be able to steal from them. Only if you absolutely found it worth to steal and take some loot that you found valuable, you could take the materials, but it would leave a gap in the loot. So I had to restock it. So I decided I will only make people that really do want to use the loot and take the loot risk leaving theft sense and summonable sense, so you would be able to view the content of the containers, but you wouldn't be able to take it unless you absolutely found it worth. And most people would probably take a lot of these items, but the deeper you did go inside of the maze, the harder it would get, and probably the most ambitious people would probably get to those levels. I would assume. And this is the first level, and it gets more and more complicated as these connections, these crossroad connections, would have approximately 3 to 2 connections per crossroad, leading you to different directions, and some of them leading you closer to the center crossroad. And eventually, if you were lucky enough, you could find yourself to the crossroad where it led to the next level, and that was the deeper level basically. And of course, you would find the next level's heart secret scribbled in the runestone, provided by Volsio, a little poem or some descriptive thing. You could find the next Hearth secret Beastmaster. If to note here, the pictures of each character was specially decorated in this picture frame, just to make sure that every character fit into the specific area that they were connected to. This was the Blood Maze. He did wear the most fancy gear, and the next guy would be the Beastmaster. And he would basically be a guy wearing a bear cape, a little bit different image. And these details I was particular about as to make it a little bit more fancy and all that. One other thing to note is that the maze was called Blood Maze on the first level, which can be shown if you just start walking. Each level had have a different name. This level is called Blood Maze, and the deeper levels have different other names, which sort of classes their category of what they represent, and the loot you will be able to find, and the decorations that are specifying those levels. Particularly on this location, the minimap was the maze was located in a specific location. I had to find a very unique location for it. It had to be in a very inconspicuous location where there was no landmarks around. There were a few green patches here and there, but basically making it harder to locate if you warped to the maze. It was meant to be secret, but later on a couple other people got in here. The detail I went through, I will describe all the little bits and pieces. Here is basically the service shaft in the center of the maze, where I would give no access to anyone else except for me basically being able to go in and do some repairs if need be. But even if the crossroads were damaged or destroyed or blocked, even I couldn't repair the maze. So it wasn't the most griefer friendly maze. There could have been other ways, safety measures to prevent griefing, but this was the easiest solution. Make it in a griefer unfriendly way. This was the easiest solution. I suppose I could have made it more secure, but I just chose the path of if it's going to get griefed, I won't be able to police or stop it. I neither have the military power or the will to be able to police everyone. I would try and make it as fun for everyone as possible, but if someone really did want to damage things in the maze, they would probably be able to succeed with quite ease. The next level, which is the Dragon's Den, basically got its name from the natural cave formation that I actually found. This was a very unique location. I don't know why this location had this exact cave formation. a specific location that didn't have any discernible marks on the surface, was completely devoid of any caves except for this extremely cool looking dragon head. But later on, some person actually went here into this cave and did some tongue on this dragon head, which kind of made me a little bit sad, because there was a natural cave formation with a really cool dragonish look, including the image on the minimap, but I suppose I had to live with it. The loot on this level is a little bit more fancy. The level of detail I went through to make sure that the loot was specific for each level was very important. This level would have a little bit more unique curios and a little bit more valuable stuff. There was also loot that was basically meant to be like as if it was inside of a cave or a similar den, and so the loot was more or less in the shapes of bones and spiders and other similar simpler curios. Not expensive curios, but somewhat of an expensive, more than the first level at least. The other things to note is that the levels above and below perfectly match. You can see that the shape of this level is identical to the shape of the first level, but the location is not offset, is exactly on the same location. Basically, going through the mine hole, you will be able to center yourself exactly on the same spot as on the surface. The other details I was particular about was that all of the corner posts were sealed. Even if I right click them, they can't open the flower menu, except the ones that had four-way, you could say four-way bricks coming out of them. There is a trick to removing the seal out of these, but because it was so laggy during the building of this maze, and everything inside of this maze was built during the lag, I didn't trust my PC to be able to stay logged in for these for the trick to remove the seal of the four-way brick corner posts, I suppose. So I didn't do that trick, and it had to remain unsealed. It didn't matter, as honestly, it was just a thought to remove all the seals from the corner posts. It was just as an extra note of detail. In this level, loot was provided not only by me, but Drenai and Ghost. The loot was, for example, detail was particular to detail, as in making sure that it did fit the theme of the level, and this theme was basically the Dragon's Den. The next level, which is the library, was held by the librarian, making him look like this image. He looked like a librarian to me, I suppose. And when you basically kin this person with a librarian Hearth secret, you would be able to gain access to the next level, and this is the next level. I'm a little bit unprepared here. These walls were supposed to be built, but I suppose it doesn't matter by now. There are materials here along the walls to finish all these wall segments and everything, and make sure that the whole thing is sealed up. But at this point, I do want to make people just to be able to run through the maze, so these aren't closed off, and you can easily walk past these rooms. Otherwise, you would simply have to go through them methodically and find exactly what crossroad connects to what. Loot in this level was very particular, and it was supposed to be a library, so there had to be, of course, books. There wasn't any books in Haven, so I used parchments, and the parchments were actually provided by Evolsio. He was really good at the storytelling. Each parchment relates to the loot found inside the cupboards, and the ash is symbolizing that there's this storyline basically that was on these parchments. Later on, found out in one of the later parchments. The most interesting and noteworthy thing about this level was that there was two rooms, one on this side and one on diagonally on the other side of this maze that had special sort of clues to where this hidden entrance to the maze was located, the eye. You could find the details in the cupboards, of course. Some of the cupboards didn't have any much in them, but oh yeah, the material to find this location would be provided in this parchment. It was difficult to make a balanced make it balanced so as to not make it too hard to make the hint too hard to understand or so. So we had to work on the parchments a bit here to make sure that there was a strong hint towards how to open the eye and where to find it. Of course, to find it, it would be quite impossible to locate it without the use of maps. And there is 4 different maps in this cupboard provided to the player or to the person that enters this level, and only one of these 4 maps are the correct one. The incorrect ones will just basically lead to a dead end, and you will find nothing there. But the correct one, which was, I believe, this map over here, if it's loaded and finishes loading, could lead to the correct location of the eye. And the eye was basically a quicker way to get inside of the maze with less agility. If you got killed during the maze, you might have wanted to get inside of the maze with ease, and this would provide you the means to get in here with only 50 agility instead of 100. Moving on, there is one other detail to note, and that is that the library had nothing specific to it other than the parchments. Look-wise, it's completely identical to the levels above, and it of course had decorations matching with the parchments inside. Basically, this cupboard, basically, for example, had parchments regarding clay, bone clay, basically, and a little short story and loot that matches this short story with a matching item that I think was the closest thing you could get to that research basically being done in this particular lab or this room. This was the other location for finding the eye, and it's providing the same. I'll try to get there in a sec. This room basically provided different maps, looking a little bit different from the other map located on the other side. This was very important. As you can see, there is white spots here on the maps, making it just a tad bit harder. If you were smart enough, if you had visited both rooms and found out that the 2 different parchments weren't identical, so you could take a copy of both of them and then mix and match the different spots that are basically hidden, and you could find a more complete map. The story on this cupboard was a bit different from that one, and basically making it meaning that the different stories behind these 2 were different. I will provide a detailed picture diagram of all the rooms and all the loot in the different rooms, so I don't need to go through all the cupboards. You could probably take a look at the exact documentation of what exactly was in what cupboard. Currently I have a half-finished version of it posted on the forums, but I will provide a more detailed one later. The next level is the armory, and of course the armory is provided by the Master of Arms, making him look like he wore some kind of armor. And this level was a little bit different from the ones below, where there is shafts leading up and down inside of the maze. And these shafts were instrumental to finishing the maze, only if you wanted to go to the last level, which not a lot of people probably would have the chance to do. You would have to first off be able to enter this level, and you would have to not only go through the level and find yourself on the next level, but you would actually, from a specific room inside of this maze, go into one of these side shafts and find yourself in this little room. Inside of these little rooms would be provided a key, which will be, I will show it later, which will be instrumental in opening and closing a gate that is located on a different level. They would be provided 10 bars if there was any nuggets around. Probably people would steal a bunch of the stuff, which I have to restock. It would be a shame if people stole all this, but I was hoping that people would appreciate it and maybe just take one. They would take one steel bar, smelt it in the crucible, and coal would of course be provided, and a little of special extra loot for the first person who got into this level. Of course, this person would have to loot this stuff, and maybe he didn't have any inventory left, or if he did have any inventory left, he would actually have to steal in a naive sense, which could mean that the first person who got to the loot wouldn't be exactly the first person who would get away with all the loot. The room opposite, which of course can't be seen because it's not loading. Here it is. It would be this room would be is an identical copy of the room on the other side. I probably don't need to show it, but it's an identical copy of the room that is sitting on this southern shaft. The crossroad connections on this level would get incrementally harder, and on this level there would of course be more connections, and as I didn't explain on the previous level, on this level the crossroad connections were basically making you reset. If you did choose the wrong location, you would actually have to start the whole maze over again, and as you got to the library, you would have to restart, and as you got to this level, to the armory, the reset would be a lot more common, so you would have to restart the maze if you did actually go to the wrong room, making it more and more difficult. And as you reach this level, probably the most people would quit going through the maze over and over again. You would have to go through a lot of wine, and a lot of people would have to probably try their chances and get here to just be resetted back to the first level. The crossroad connections basically get more and more complicated. In this level, the crossroad connections aren't as dense as the coming levels. This next level is probably the most dense levels, and in the crossroad network, and this person to kin would be the royal guard, which would be basically a guard looking like a guard, even though he doesn't look like one. He basically imitates one. He would be the guard of the king, and he would hold domain over this area, and this would be sort of I don't know, King's Tomb would trick you into thinking like this is the actual final room, because it got grand entrance to this shaft leading up here. You would be able to enter this level, but the connections comparison to the other levels above wouldn't be incremental. You wouldn't just go from, for example, this room into this room that is just next to it, like in the library, and if you do a mistake you would reset to a completely different location. On this level, every single room would be completely random, and or I'm saying it is random. It is completely random, and if you go from this room, you can end up in any other location inside of this room. And if you pick the wrong room, you would either be reset into one of the trapped rooms, which makes you confused as to first think that it is the correct location, but it might not be, as you just swirl around and end up just resetting yourself. A huge time waster that some people might have figured out after a while. Um, of course, one thing I'm not noting here is that people could easily just place down a Hearthfire and know if they're doing the wrong move, they could just come back to the first location they placed down their Hearthfire. But I would actually be very concerned about using Hearthfires, just because you could use Hearthfires to first off finish the maze way faster than I would want people to. I mean, a lot of effort went into this maze. Would be quite a shame if people put a bunch of Hearthfires around and just accidentally blocked one of the crossroads, and even used it to spawn in an army of alts. So if I found a Hearthfire, I would actually be very strict about policing it. One other thing I would be able to police would be the annoying summon feature, which would be quite annoying if people actually use that trick to summon people and reset their location back to an original location if two people were running the maze. That would be annoying, but I wouldn't be able to police that as much as I would be able to police a Hearthfire. I should probably go and take a closer look at the King's Tomb, as we are on this level, and this room, the King's Tomb, is a very easy room to end up in, because there is a strong hint that when you end up going through this entire room, just before you finish, there will be a lot of crossroads hinting you towards into getting in here and not going past this level. When you get here, you basically see a large building. Going inside, you will find a hidden cellar. Going in, you will find the dead king, of course, with his runestone and all that, and a descriptive parchment saying what the king's last words were. All of these will be provided later on. Sorry about the hiccup. I accidentally hit the stop button. So where was I? Oh yeah, basically there was a little hint towards where all the loot the king had has gone. You have been provided a link with all the loot, but there is a parchment here stating that the loot was moved by the architect, and this gives you the hint that there is actually not only not a level below you, and that you actually have to go there through resetting through the entire maze, where you have to actually start all over again. What you need to do is basically go out of this maze and go back out and start all over again. The connections for that were not connected yet, which is basically this sign over here. You would have to start all over again, and this time you will actually have to go through the maze again, and to find the secret tunnel going down south is south of us right now. I'll be cutting when I reach it. Here's the southern part of the maze, and to get to the last level you actually need to go to a location south of this fourth level. And the fourth level have a gate here, which is the key we provided earlier inside of the armory. And if you didn't find the key by sheer bad luck, there would be a runestone stating that you actually need to go back to level 3, and the runestone the crossroad would provide you to that ability to go back to level 3 and redo that level till you did get the key. If you did unfortunately not get the key, that would be requiring you to go through the most horrible level and somehow, in some way, find it, even though it's quite difficult and can be provided only by guesswork, I guess. finding the key, if you were lucky enough to get this far, which I doubt a lot of people would be able to. In all honesty, I did find the maze a little bit too difficult. When I did think about it and go through it again, this key would be able to provide ability to open the gate, and of course the runestone would provide the Hearth secret of the guy on the next level, which is the architect, which would be the guy in the last level. And on this level is where I literally went nuts with all the bricks and brick designs and made as much brick decor and make it as fancy as possible. As I guess the only problem with this level was that I think it was basically too difficult. It would be too difficult. I'm not sure which term it would be used in, but I guess I'm going to use it in. But I guess it's too difficult because the level of density of crossroads is quite staggering. Just as you stumble on this level, you see all these crossroads and the extra brick art. There could have been a little bit more brick art. I wanted to put in more, but there wasn't enough time, I guess. This level basically would make even the most sane person go crazy, I guess. The only issue with this room would be that when you're finished with it, you would, for example, start in this section over here. You would go through these crossroads one by one, and when you ended up inside of this particular room, there would be a little mini maze inside of this room. And if you guessed the correct solution, it wouldn't just make you think that you guessed the wrong solution, it would completely confuse you, because it would go back up to level 1. And part of the first level, and that is the level Dragon's Den, is actually designed for level 5. So going up then back down, you would end up in this section of the maze, and as before, there is a section on level 2 which is specifically designed just for the 5th level on level 2, which connects this level to level 2, making you even more confused. Like that, this room would basically make you even, like before, confused. As you enter this room, for example, you would have, for example, let's just go back here. This room, for example, you would have to guess first correct on this crossroad. Going into this crossroad, you would have to go to this one, guess the correct solution, be able to transport here. If you guessed wrong, you would be spit out of this middle section. You would have to guess correct here, guess correct here, here, and here. And any of these could just spit you out and just put you in the wrong room. And this level is kind of ruthless, where not one but all 4 of the wrong solutions will reset you, and you actually have to go back all the way from the start of the maze, making this part of the maze quite difficult. This room, basically you will connect to the center location, this crossroad over here. This room would probably would able to go to one of these other 4 rooms, and I was very particular about the connections on this level. The connections were, the detail was, I don't know why, but it was a little bit cool to make it a little bit fancier, making the crossroad connection signs point in a specific direction. There is also other details, like in this room, you would end up in the outer part and you would have to try and find the correct solution, and all of these crossroads have a bunch of connections on them. I think there is about 4 connections on each sign, so you would have to guess one correct solution out of the 4 crossroads, which has 4 signs connected to them, making it a total of 32. 1 in 32 would be the correct solution. Anything else would basically screw you over. And in hindsight, it's quite difficult to actually guess the correct solution. And the amount of times you would have to reset and come back down here, only the most the most particular, the most ambitious people that actually did map through the maze and maybe cooperated with other people that did map the maze might have been able to figure out to get to this last level. Lastly, you would actually end up in this madhouse where there is enough crossroads, and they're all pointing in a specific direction here, and only the correct one will take you to the last room. I'm not exactly going to say exactly which one it is, but I'm going to just give a hint that it's not the crossroads that is pointing blatantly, obviously, to the final room. There is a little bit of a trick that I used, or not trick. I guess I connected it up to some other room before it finishes. So it doesn't exactly mean that if you pick this crossroad, which sort of similarly looks like it's pointing there, would be the correct one. One out of these crossroads would be the correct one. There is approximately 3 connections per sign. 30, I think there is, how much crossroads do you have? There's something like 5, 8, 32, 32 times 3, something like 76 connections, and you have to guess the correct solution. And you best guess the correct solution, otherwise you have to start all over again. I guess by the definition of this level, finishing it was quite difficult. Only probably the most insane person would finish this level. In some ways I'm glad it never did get run, because people would just go crazy and just bash a bunch of crossroads, because it would get quite madly, insanely hard. I don't know if Hearth fires would be allowed at this level. I mean, it should be, honestly. And if you did go down all the way down here, there would be just you and maybe 2 other people that showed up in here, and people would be able to maybe use their Hearth fires, because otherwise it would be quite impossible to go through this maze. There is also one other detail that I was particular about, and that was that in this level there is no crossroads that are actually empty. There is 5 signs in every single sign except for the central ones, which had a little bit more unique setup. Only 1 connection was correct, everything else reset, and every single crossroad in here was made sure to have the most I would say that the correct solution would probably not be the first one. If you were particularly following a routine where you go to the first one then the second one, I usually threw them around, and most often it wasn't the first choice and it was the last one. And most seldom I would pick the first one, and at this point you would either go mad or you would break apart the whole maze. Glad it didn't get to that point, but yeah, just some signs with resources in them here. When you finish this maze, you basically you would end up in this room over here, and fancy as it is, it would be a red carpet, of course, for the player to walk on, because you would honestly deserve the loot that would be coming from this maze. I would like to put in more decorations in here, but time was running short, and honestly I was burning out, getting burnt out of working on this maze, so I guess this was looking good enough. I would have liked to have a little bit more detail. The loot would be in this room, and there would be loot. The best loot would be sitting in here. The best loot is currently not in this maze. It's just to have some form of a show. There would be two LCs here. Maybe there would be other loot. There's 4 loot that would. I will try and get those in here before I do the opening. There is all kinds of crazy loot. I will try and post all of these loots and all of those details and this final picture diagram, or whatever it would be called. And this would be the whole maze. the construction of this maze, the maze part at least. The second part would be the off locations where you actually go into the maze, and the movie, which we never got to finish. And maybe we'll finish it, who knows. We maybe have enough time to do it. Just have a say regarding these connections. The first level, the level 0 basically, is very simple. You will easily be able to go through it. I would think that most people would be able to go through the maze without any hiccups or any problems. They would probably not run out of wine. They would have to drink a lot of wine to go through it with a lot of guesswork. But I think most people would get stuck on level 1, which basically was the Dragon's Den, the first dungeon level. After that level, I think probably most people would have quit. Only the most meticulous people would actually end up on the lower levels. One thing I was, the only reason I was trying to make be careful about it was that I would think that the upper levels might be blocked by people, because if people would get killed, for example, and close by getting sniped by a person, their corpse would actually litter the crossroad and blocking it. I wouldn't be able to remove their corpses or their bones, because the only way to actually get inside of this room would be through the service shaft, which uses crossroads, which makes block crossroads quite a nuisance, because even I wouldn't be able to remove them. The only way to remove them would actually have to be through village jumping. If these 4 rooms, for example, were damaged, I would be able to use the village idol to jump into these 4 rooms. I wouldn't be able to, for example, to fix any problems that would be rising in the edges of this maze, for example, in this room over here. The other issues that would probably pop up would be that on the first levels, the exact amount of number of people I wouldn't be able to control. There would maybe be a spam of 20 people at once, and some of them would be able to block signs, some of them would be able to do all kinds of crazy sniping against other targets, making it impossible for example, newer players or any other people. I wouldn't be able to control any of it. One thing I just had in mind was just build it and see where it goes. I was hoping that it would be released and see where it led. I mean, it wouldn't be that bad if it just were functional for even a week, maybe even 2 days, for people to have a try at it. And if things did go south, I would be opening it for a more narrow audience, just to make sure that people didn't grief it too much. Maybe use a bunch of RAM and a bunch of glue and fix up all the maze rooms that did get damaged during the chaos of the opening. But at this point, I have no idea what will have happened, and I'm not sure if I will pull off this craziness in the next world. Hopefully, there will be enough people interested in this craziness and are interested in helping out. The reason, in hindsight, I'm sitting here talking about what could have and what would have. The problem was that the construction of these crossroads, for example, took over 2 months to create. The connections, the design of these crossroads were abnormally difficult. I mean, you just imagine 5 crossroads named the exact same thing, and if you take this crossroad, the first one, and put them inside of your inventory, you will basically be confused if you take another crossroad and put it inside of your inventory if you don't have a specific setup, which I usually did. I had a very specific setup in my inventory. Just make sure that the first one I picked goes to the first slot, so that if I put that one on first, it would be showing up here on the first slot, and the second one would be the second item, basically making, for example, this item being the first connection, the second item would be sitting here, the second connection, third item, and so on. But on this last level and the 4th level, because I had to make a lot of trips go up and down to the upper levels. For example, this crossroad connects not only to this level itself into the correct room, it connects to all the rooms above this level. So if I wanted to just make one crossroad down here at this 5th level, I would actually have to right click on the idle, on law speaker, go back up to level 4, law speaker myself, and if I forgot, I had to go all the way back down here, make myself way back down here, and take one crossroad off level 4, and I couldn't make a single mistake. I was very particular about what crossroad would go where, and basically building this particular list of crossroad connections that all were the same name, from the first one to the last one, and connecting them up. And when the whole maze was finished, I had to test all of the connections, and going through all of the crossroads. I mean, I phased out at points. I had to redo them more than once. I probably used up about 230 quality wine, about 6 buckets or so. My guy constantly had to go and drain his hunger just to make sure that his hunger meter actually didn't go all the way up, and just made me move very slowly. It was a very painful part of the building. It's a real big shame that the most difficult part of the maze is not actually the building of these brick walls, and the building of the actual tunnels, which was also a methodical pace, had to go through every single level, and all. The most difficult part was the crossroad connections, and they won't be even understood or seen, or I mean, they're just a bunch of blank crossroads here. That was the most difficult. That was the most painful part. The other thing that is worth note, that I probably will put it in when I'm actually doing the picture diagram when I was doing the early maze buildings, is that every single level on this maze were dug out, of course with bots. You could just imagine if I had done this by hand, that would just be insane. I did it on my miner, and every single tile was dug exactly according to plan. Not a single tile was misdug. Just digging out a single tile, for example, over here incorrectly would just ruin the whole maze for me. For me, at least. Other people would just ignore it. I mean, who cares about a misdigging? But the maze is perfectly dug. I mean, you can see it here. Every single tile have been correctly dug. There is not a single misdigging, and unfortunately, on the first level and the dragon's den and the cave with the dragon's head, someone had to dig out that dragon's tongue, which didn't make me happy. Anyways, digging through all the levels, there wasn't any single ore. There wasn't any trolls spawning. Nothing special. Nothing particular. There wasn't a single cave dug out. It looks like a completely empty cave. The first level of digging was actually interesting. It had quality 51 ore on level 1. Other than that, nothing particularly special about the whole digging and building of this maze, except that the whole process took roughly 4 months to build, to get from the point where I had all the resources to building this entire building. At the beginning, there wasn't any walls. There was just crossroads, and I just ran between them, and then the walls came in. And that's basically it about the whole maze. Nothing else I could probably add, not at this point. One other thing to note, besides the whole construction of Santa Mesa, is that the good thing about it was that it was close enough to my base that I could transport in large amounts of bricks, of course, and the agility of my diggers. For example, this guy, he started off with, I believe, 10 agility, and he was supposed to get killed during his clay digging. He kept digging clay, and I just fed him agility food. I didn't actually give him cheese food. I just gave him banonis from the pigs, and he just kept dumping agility into him just to make sure that he could actually dig further nodes. and transport the clay home, because that's where I did all the burning and all that. I will probably make a short video of where the no, actually let's go there right now. Let's see. This is where all the digging and burning happened inside of this dungeon, with nothing of a particular inside of this dungeon. Basically, this was the kilns used to burn both the mountain and the maze. These blocks of wood are a recent addition, and they're blocks of wood transported in. These are blocks of wood for the steel factory, and here's something people might find kind of interesting. These blocks of wood for the steel always were used from the stumps. These piles over here were for general usage, making coal and whatnot, and these were from logs. So we filled this steel up just from stumps, and I don't know why. We found it wasteful to cut up logs and make the steel run out of log blocks. But these blocks are all come from stumps. This steel ran about 2 towns to make enough materials for the maze. We probably spent it in other stupid, unrelated areas, but most of it was dug and all that. And there would be pictures later on detailing how much of this area was filled with signs of cast iron and wrought iron and whatnot. And yeah, basically it. And down here we dug a bunch of cast iron, and this goes down to level 4. Which we dug a lot of our cast iron. This leads down to another cave system that is basically level 3, and we dug a whole bunch of our cast iron on this level as well. We didn't find any trolls. We dug all this and we didn't find any trolls. We dug 10 tiles in level 1, and we found a troll, which kind of is sad. Yeah, it just keeps going. It goes on for just a little bit. Stops it right here or something. We got 10. 10 came out of our ears. We dug south, we got 10. We got 10 north and 10 west and east. It was basically 10, 10, 10, 10. And when we got sick of 10, we just switched nodes and we got more 10 in our cast iron. We just got sick of it. This is just leading down to level 4. There is nothing down there. Just some experimental mining just before the end of the world. It's a shame. Could have actually spawned a troll here, but nah. No trolls. I don't think they like my bots. They hate me. I think trolls hate me in general. But that's all the digging. It might be worth showing that. It might be worth to just show how much cast iron we dug out down here as well. Just noteworthy, I guess. Not too important, but this node was kind of insane. I don't know why it went on as long as it did. It just kept going and going and going and going. And all of this was used bots on, of course, but I don't find playing without bots in Haven and Hearth any fun. And that's actually the reason I'm playing Haven and Hearth, is to learn Java code and whatnot. And it's been a fun joyride. But I don't find myself at all interested in playing Haven without bots. Here is another part of the second crazy dungeon. It's just cast iron. It's like a river of cast iron, like Ghost said. Just a river of cast iron. And all of that, not a troll, not a single one, not a specific thing came out of it. No, just just a bunch of cast iron, and prospecting just led to nowhere. No gold. We never found a gold, but we found a silver vein. That's all that we found. And that concludes all the maze stuff and the materials.